20 years of the tourism investment proposal. I can't even believe that I'm sitting here talking about this 20 years later.
Celebrating the 20th anniversary of a tax is very interesting, especially since it's a tax the industry supported, which it's hard to argue with the success that we've had with it.
In 2002 and 2003, the unemployment rate was really bad.
The economy was struggling.
The general fund was losing money.
We needed to position Oregon as a competitive destination, not only nationally, but globally.
Really, no one knew where Oregon was at that time. We were just north of California and just south of Washington, but people really didn't know where we were.
The travel and tourism industry in Oregon, it was creating jobs, it was creating economic vitality, it was generating tax revenue. Local lodging taxes were being increased, but less and less of that money was being directed to support the travel and tourism industry.
They were using what was a discretionary tax on a very specific kind of business to fill huge general fund gaps, broad services.
We knew that it was an opportunity to align the statewide industry and develop relationships from the grassroots level to invest in Oregon's economy by investing in tourism.
People say, why should we spend money on advertising tourism? They come here because of the natural beauty of the state, but yet we have many other activities that we could attract people to come here through our advertising.
I was passionate about the bill because I saw it being a benefit for tourism and our state and our community.
It would increase jobs, and it would be beneficial for all.
Governor Kulongoski had just been elected in November of 2002.
People were saying, what are you going to do to get me a job?
And so he was bringing together groups of folks to talk about what he could do to stimulate the economy. And one of those groups was the travel and tourism industry.
I met with them and they were talking me into actually prioritizing
the idea of the Oregon Tourism Investment Proposal that would really do three things: implement a statewide lodging tax of 1%, put protections in place over the use of local lodging taxes, and the third component was establishing Travel Oregon as a semi-independent public agency.
Ultimately, out of that meeting, my staff and I decided to put it in the governor's budget, which probably in the long run helped it a great deal.
The industry was really unified in knowing what the end game was.
Working together is always beneficial in this than working independent.
The willingness of the lodging industry to say, we are going to tax our customers for the better good of Oregon's economic vitality was real leadership at a time that it was very necessary.
It was one of the first bills introduced and one of the last bills passed, so that should tell you a little something about it.
You know, you had to make some compromise, so the compromise out of it was 70% of the future lodging taxes, if they're raised at a local level, 70% of them had to go to tourism-related activities, and 30% could go to general fund.
The difference that the Oregon Tourism Investment Proposal has made has been remarkable.
Since 2003, there have been over 500 million visits, equating to $192 billion in visitor spending.
The economic impact of international flights into Oregon is probably $100 million each year for just one of those flights. We wouldn't have the number of international flights we have today without the lodging tax, without the support of Travel Oregon.
I think what I appreciate most about the passing of this bill is how it affects rural Oregon.
Today, we generate hundreds of millions of dollars in Coos County because of the tourism.
These last 20 years have shown it was a great decision. It has grown our economy at the state level, and it has grown our economy at the local level.
20 years later, that bill is relatively the same. A couple of things that have occurred to it have been things that have made it better.
This has extended into significant grant programs. In the last 5 years alone, Travel Oregon has distributed more than $16.5 million in grant resources statewide. These are resources that have been absolutely vital to the regions and the local communities.
It's just one of the great economic tools we have in this state.
We need these resources protected. We need them reinvested so that we can approach the challenges of seasonality, so that we can draw visitors here during the winter months when our retail and restaurants and museums need those visitors.
We want to ensure that local communities and elected officials can understand and embrace what investment in small Oregon communities can mean.
There's always a conversation about the rural-urban divide, and the work that Travel Oregon has always done, it's borderless.
I think the legacy in looking at it and what we've been able to do is to tell the true story about Oregon.
We have $2 billion being spent in Oregon today that wouldn't have been spent here otherwise.
There is no price tag that you can put on the commitment that the tourism industry has to the stewardship of Oregon, the passion that the people of this industry have, and the future that we believe in with Travel Oregon and Oregon's tourism industry.